Welcome back, everybody. We're going to move on to our Financial and Administrative Services Committee this morning. On this committee are myself, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Berg, and Mayor Clayton. And we'll start off, we'll call to order, and we'll look for an adoption of an agenda, please. Councillor Berg.
So moved.
Thank you.
Mayor Clayton in favor.
And that carries. Thank you. We have no delegations, and so we'll go to our reports. We'll go to our service area update first, and we'll look to Chief Whiteway, please.
Thank you, Chair Palat. So just a brief update from the Financial and Administrative Services area. Tax and Assessment have sent out residential requests for information. So they've been mailed out to areas that assessors are re-inspecting this year. Residents are encouraged to either fill out and submit the RFI or complete it online. If anyone has difficulty with the RFI, they're able to call and speak to an assessor or arrange for an on-site inspection. Tomorrow is the deadline for assessment inquiry and appeals. Within finance, we are finalizing our year-end audit, expecting to have draft financial statements today, and we are planning to present to committee on April 16th. Additionally, we did receive access to the line of credit that Council approved, so that has taken effect this week. Within procurement, we have 9 bids currently on the market and are working towards preparing more competitive bids, so those will be increasing as the weeks go on. And finally, we have GIS is busy supporting our census and going forward into the coming months. That's it.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions for Chief Whiteway? We'll have one question from Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. I'm not on this committee, but I'm just curious. The statement that you said that there's a couple different aspects being reassessed with residential, what different types of aspects are being reassessed potentially?
Thank you, through the chair. So what we do is we do rotate through neighborhoods and send out requests for information. We're asking residents to provide us with any updates through this request on any changes that would have been made to the property. Otherwise, we can do on-site inspections. If we don't receive the request for information, we do look for on-site inspections.
Thank you for that. Seeing no other questions, we'll move on to our next item in our agenda, and I'll come back to Chief White to introduce that as well, please.
Thank you, Chair Palat. So I'm here today to recommend that committee recommend council increase the 2024 budgeted municipal tax levy by $3,073,823 and amend the 2024 operating and capital budgets as presented in Appendix 1 to the report. Previously, Council had directed administration to pursue a user pay utility model for the city's stormwater operating and capital costs. This was included in the 2024 operating and capital budgets as approved by Council in late 2023. Since that time, Council's decided not to continue with a utility model for funding the city's stormwater operations and capital, which leaves a net revenue shortfall of that $3,073,823. As required under the Municipal Government Act, a city's budget must be balanced. Therefore, a budget amendment and determination of funding is now required in order to remain balanced. The utility was included in the 2024 to 2027 operating and capital budgets for the city. We had estimated just over $4 million to be collected via the utility rather than the historical tax funding method. Page 2 of your report details the net revenue shortfall. As you will see, without the stormwater utility, there are certain expenditures that the city will not require. That would be utility charges on any city-owned properties, an additional temporary employee to support the utility, third-party billing support, as well as stormwater reserve funding. This has reduced the net revenue shortfall that needs to be covered to the $3,073,000. When we took a look at this, we looked at 3 possible ways to cover the revenue shortfall. We looked at fully tax funded, fully reserve funded, and partially tax funded and partially reserve funded together. Today we are recommending the fully tax funded approach to balance the budget and cover the shortfall, as taxation revenue is an ongoing permanent solution to balance the budget and ensure that service costs are covered into perpetuity. Whereas the use of one-time savings held in reserves will not offer such stability and will require tax funding in future years as savings are depleted. In addition to the revenue shortfall identified, other budget amendments are required to remove the costs, as I previously explained, as well as reallocate costs back to where they've been historically budgeted and managed. To initially create the stormwater budget, administration moved budgeted costs within departments such as transportation. These budgets will be restored back to where they've been historically captured. This is detailed in Appendix 1 and do form part of the amendment required by Council. Alternatives, as I mentioned, are available for Council. Council could fund the revenue shortfall from a reserve, specifically the Financial Stabilization Reserve. You could fund the revenue shortfall from a mixture of taxation and Financial Stabilization Reserve. We did not recommend either of these alternatives due to the level of funds available in the Financial Stabilization Reserve, as well, of course, as the one-time nature of reserves as a funding source for operations. If Council were to use reserves, it does bring the reserve much closer to the minimum balance requirements set out in Policy 346 and will inevitably require tax funding in the future. With the decision not to implement a storm utility, Council must now rebalance the budget. The total net revenue shortfall, once all costs directly associated are eliminated, is just over $3 million at $3,073,823. And we do recommend that the 2024 municipal tax levy be increased by this amount to balance the budget as per the Municipal Government Act. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks, Chief Whiteway. Any questions for Chief Whiteway? Seeing nobody throwing their hands up, I had a couple, if you could, just for clarification on me. When I looked at our budget for 2024-2025, unless I'm misunderstanding something, we had a recreation facility being proposed to be built, and I'm wondering how that's been adjusted or updated with the potential of that not moving forward.
Thank you for the question. We've not had specific direction not to move forward, therefore it would still be included within the operating budgets.
Okay, so maybe it's just a question for CEO, if you could maybe expand on when there'll be something coming more forward about that.
Administration are still bringing a report this spring for site location for that proposed facility. So it is still on the books that it could proceed. If council were to reallocate that money, it would mean that facility wouldn't be able to be constructed this year. There is the potential, if a site was selected and things moved along, that some preparatory work could happen this year. It wouldn't be the full facility, but some work potentially could, unless that money was reallocated.
So just the timing, I guess, is a little hard on that. So when that report will come after this, is there any way, but before next Monday's council decision, this is getting referred to have a little bit more knowledge on that? Because when I'm looking in our budget binders, that's $417,000 for 2024 and $1.5 million for 25 that would all slide by a year and have quite a big impact on how I would decide about some of the things I would look at using on this. So for me, it would be nice to know that information before we're going to make this impact on our tax change this year, if possible. I'm not sure if that is possible for administration to get done by then, but they're large numbers and they have a fairly large impact on what we could look at doing with that as well.
We could potentially bring some information. I don't think we'd be able to bring. I don't think we'd be in a position for council to make a complete decision on that by Monday. So it would be my advice would be to put what your higher priority is at this time. We had given those rough numbers, but we won't have the full information by Monday.
Okay. And just one other question. When I looked at LGFF funding that looks like we're receiving from the province, it's higher. I know we're talking about 24 today, but there's an impact on 25's budget as well. Have we updated what the LGFF funding for 25 and beyond is compared to what we had in the budget, because it has increased, and what the impact would look like in 25?
Thank you for the question. So with LGFF specifically, no, we haven't adjusted future years. That is something that we do within our schedule. So it'll be done this year for presentation in the fall for 2025. With any additional funds received, we do have our process for mid-year capital and operating adjustments. So that's where we reconcile any revenue differences and propose either additional projects to council, or we can manage funding sources at that time. So that's our process for dealing when there's variances in the grants that we had anticipated. LGFF is very specific for projects, for project dollars, those sorts of things. So it's a little more specific for utilization.
Okay. And just one last question before we go to business. Just so I believe the proposed tax increase, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Chief White, was 3.28% this year. So if we were to approve this, we'd just be going from 3.28 to about 5.5 in that range, or what would the number be for the 2024 proposed tax increase?
Thank you, Chair Palat. So it would be 5.74%.
Okay, and if we were to go ahead with that change this year, what would be the 2025 potential tax increase with the current budget in place?
Currently, based on what's been prepared for 2024, would be 8.25%. For 2025's tax increase.
If we went with 5.74 today, it would still be 8.25 in 2025?
Yes, and just to add maybe some context around that, we do prepare the 4-year budget, but obviously revisit it every year with council. So as of today, yes, the estimate would be 8.25%, even if it was fully tax funded. However, administration does review each year the budgets to ensure that that's the most accurate rate we're bringing forward to council.
Okay. So I guess we can go to business arising for today. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Mayor Clayton. I didn't see your hand up. My bad. Mayor Clayton, please.
Thanks, Chair Plott. A couple questions for administration and potentially for those, more than likely for those who are watching online. Ms. Whitewick, can you tell me when the final decision that council needs to make in regards to this? And the reason I ask that, my understanding it is by the next council meeting. But just for those who may be watching online, is there any leeway? And that question is based around information that Councillor Plott is looking for. And I have follow-up questions as well.
Thank you through the chair. So being early April, we are running into time constraints with regards to the property tax bylaw needing to come forward this month so that we can levy taxes mail out to our property owners in a timely fashion. So as previously stated, we have obligation to prepare a balanced budget each and every year. Currently, we're unbalanced, so we need direction in order to levy the required taxes this month.
Mayor Clayton, you had some more questions?
And so that could not wait till April 23rd council meeting.
CEO Burke?
So it was 400,000 was the total number we're looking at for the facility costs if we were to begin construction this year. I'd say that's a small portion of this. I think it would be a more valuable decision by council to say proceed or not proceed this year. Any information we would bring about the potential to start some work this fall would be just a portion of that number, so it wouldn't be a large amount. So I think it'd be a more valuable decision for council just to decide if it's wait until 2025 and make sure that we've gone through the proper steps for an important facility that's going to last us 25 years, as opposed to rushing that decision here in the next week, especially when it's just a small portion of the amount that would be required. So that would be what I would suggest as the decision point.
Does that answer?
Sorry, I guess no. My question is what is the latest council meeting that council can decide this? Because I have other questions that have some time bearing as well. So what's the latest council meeting that council can make this decision?
I can. Thank you, Chair Palat. Currently, it would have to be the latest would be the 28th, but it would require a walk-on, so we would not be able to go through to council. So it would have to be the 30th that we could bring forward that to count. The property tax bylaw is the latest on the 30th.
Okay, thank you. So, Chair Plott, if you have no one else in the queue, I have a couple other questions.
Yeah, keep going, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks. Ms. Whiteway, can you tell us the amount of money in Council's Strategic Initiatives Fund?
Through the chair, there's a $718,000 available in that fund.
Okay, can you tell me the amount in the Financial Stabilization Reserve?
The Financial Stabilization Reserve has $14.2 million unallocated.
Okay. I'm wondering then, my next question, possibly for Chief Lemieux, when can Council expect to hear a update on the fire break? That is an agreement between the provincial government and the County of Grande Prairie. I know significant work has been done. When will Council know the total financial implications of that partnership? As I understand, there may be some financial dollars that we will potentially not fully spend of the $1 million contribution in that partnership from the City of Grande Prairie.
Cecilia Burke.
Mayor Clayton, we have made a request from the county to see when that money would be closed off. We have had indications that the funding we've allocated is unlikely to be used, but the project hasn't been formally closed off. We don't have an answer on when they'll do that, but we have made that inquiry.
Okay, thanks. Stop me when you have someone else, Chair. Ms. Whiteway, can you remind me how the capital portion of the dome was being funded? How was that $10 million of the capital contribution being funded?
Thank you, through the chair. So that was anticipated to be fully debt funded.
And so $10 million is about $800,000 annually, is that correct?
Through the chair, so we had anticipated a half year potentially for borrowing if we had required the cash this year to begin construction. That was $417,500. Future budgets are $835,000 estimated debt payments plus operations, which is $1.495 million annually in that budget.
So correct me, it's approximately $800,000 between capital and operating that was budgeted for 2024 for the dome. Is that correct?
Through the chair, just the debt was budgeted for 2024. We hadn't anticipated operations this year,
okay.
just the need for cash. So $417,500 is the budget on that one.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Plott. I do have another question, but I just got to check my notes.
Just while you're checking your notes, Mayor Clayton, I want to come back to the dome. I'm a little bit, I guess for me, I'm still a little bit confused about the dome, I guess, in its own way. We had made a motion last year at budget to go ahead with it. Kind of out of our control at that point, we said go ahead with the dome. So I'm still kind of curious on why this is kind of lingering. Like, I'm a little bit confused. We made a decision to go ahead with it. If it's not going to happen, then we should know about it. It feels like now. If it is going to happen, there is some timing to this for me because I don't want to see this being fully tax funded. Personally, I'm fine with getting this motion to council today to have a debate there, but I'm struggling with fully tax funding this year. So I'm not sure if that's CEO Burke or Chief Whiteway, but I'm curious about the sequencing of when we made a motion to go ahead with building a dome and we thought we were building a dome. Why there's conversation about it still? Is it happening or not?
Administration has received direction to have this discussion as a regional discussion, and so we've been engaged in that to see if what the ultimate design or location would be for this facility, and so we've been sequencing that. So that has been why this has not come forward. We do plan to bring this forward at some point this spring, but it has been in respect to some regional discussions that have been occurring.
So I guess for me, if administration could, when this comes to council, please look at what these numbers look like for 2024 and 2025 potential tax increases if the dome doesn't happen this year and everything slides by a year, as well as including an update on the LGFF funding. I think those are things for me to understand more of how we're going to impact our 25 budget by what we do with our 24 budget, and what 25 budget's going to be impacted by. Those two changes already could be in the $1.5 million to $1.7 million range for 2025's budget, and from my math already. So I just want to get that clarified for when it comes to council for a debate there. Mayor Clayton, are you ready for your next question?
Yeah. Yes, thanks, Chair Plott. Question for the CFO. Can you remind me when will any when will Q4 financial reporting happen for council, before committee rather?
Thank you through the chair. I will be bringing that forward next committee meeting. I do have the estimated surplus that we will be presenting in 2 weeks is around $600,000 for 2023.
Okay, so Chair Plott, if you're ready, I have some business arising.
I think Councillor O'Connor wanted to make the business arising, but are you okay with him making the business arising and amending it, or?
Sure.
Sorry, he was in the queue for a while on that one, Mayor Clayton. So I'll go to Councillor O'Connor for business arising.
Yes, I'd like to move committee recommend council increase the 2024 budgeted municipal tax levy by $3,073,823 and amend the 2024 operating and capital budgets as presented in Appendix 1. And if there's any amendments, Mayor Clayton?
Mayor Clayton, did you want to amend the motion, or did you want to do a separate motion?
Yeah, I can't. No, I'll speak in opposition to that motion. I can't support that motion based on how it's currently written. That would see all of this $3 million going to tax increase. I think the council has an opportunity in front of them. And sure, when it comes to council, we can discuss and debate it and tweak it there. But I think that it's important for committee to have these conversations today. And my preference would be that there is a small amount. It's a combination of things: small amount of tax increase, the use of reserves, the actualization of potential revenue. Surpluses from Q4. So for me, my motion would prefer to have this conversation come to council on April 24th. As next standing committee meeting would be April 16th. Council would have seen the surplus. There may be time for additional regional conversations in regard to recreation by that time. I would prefer that April 30th would be my preference, that this decision goes to council on April 30th. So I can't support the motion as worded.
Chief Wayway?
Thank you. Just to clarify, so next committee will be the 16th. We'd be bringing forward the 2023 year end, which is the audited financial statements, as well as the unaudited and a recommendation with the approximate $600,000 surplus. So that business will be handled at the next committee meeting on the 16th. Subsequent to that, we would have the 22nd council meeting, to which we could bring this report again with other information as requested. And then on committee on the 30th, we can then bring in any property tax bylaw as an introduction. Does that confirm?
Perfect. Thanks for the clarification. Yeah, thanks for the clarification, Ms. Whiteway. So regardless, Chair Plott, I can't support this motion as I don't think that it should be fully tax funded. My preference would be to have this decision in front of council on April 22nd.
Okay, thanks for that, Mayor Clayton. I'm just going to ask our CEO if this motion were just to get defeated, because Because I probably am likely not supporting it as well. I agree with Mayor Clayton. I don't think we can just put this all on as a tax burden this year. We got to put our thinking caps on and think about what 25 and beyond looks like. But I don't want to see this fully supported by tax funding either. My intent was to try to get this to council, though. I think this is a council conversation because it's going to have a big impact on the community. But just for sequencing, if this motion was defeated, what would administration like for a subsequent motion, or would this just be defeated and this would just come back to the future committee meeting?
We're required to pass a balanced budget by legislation, so we would have to bring a motion or a bylaw forward before the 22nd. I think it would be useful, though, if council had some direction for specifics that they pass a motion here at this committee.
Okay, thanks for that, Theo. Councillor Berg?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Palat. Again, just for greater context for people watching, the reason that we're discussing this is that council wanted to explore stormwater fees and basically to go to a user pay model where larger properties would pay more and smaller properties like residences would pay less. And through discussions, we heard that the public in general was in opposition to this, so we defeated it, but we still need to make that money up somewhere. So rather than a stormwater fee, people spoke up and to us individually, and we heard a lot from a lot of people, and they said to keep the costs in taxes. So with that, I support the taxes because that's what the people wanted. However, not everybody sees the intricacies of the budget that we do. So I do think Mayor Clayton has a point that there are other sources that we can bring this down with. So I do like to see this go to council for a full discussion, but I do agree with Mayor Clayton that we do need some more information to see how we can bring this down via taxes and through other sources. So excellent points. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So with that, I'll probably vote against this motion, although before that, I was in favor of it to have a more robust discussion at council.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I will be voting in favor of this motion only because I think we need to make a decision, and what is happening in the future will happen in the future. So I'll be supporting it only because we made this decision and our administration needs a firm answer and we need to give it to them. And if it comes back at a later date, so be it. Okay. Thank you. That's my close.
That's the close for Councillor O'Connor.
Sorry, Chair Plot, I was in the queue, so that can't be as close. Thanks.
Okay, my bad on that. Please go ahead, Mayor Clayton. We'll come back to you for close, Councillor O'Connor, if you want.
Appreciate the question, Councillor Plot, in regards to timing. If this motion is defeated, I do have subsequent motion. And to the point, and really, I could amend this motion. It's probably easier to defeat it and start over, but it's based on comments of my committee colleagues in regards to, as in your package, it indicates there is options. The third option, as listed by administration, would be my preference, which is a combination of tax as well as reserves. I think that, as mentioned by the CFO, April 22nd gives enough time for conversations on that. Fully agree that committee needs to get this to council for a full council conversation. And council could make it, or committee rather, could make a decision here today. The information, there will be no, well, the only piece of new information that we may have is in regards to potential actualization of not fully spending the money in regards to the fire break. I guess there could be some additional context in regards to regional recreational facilities and potential expenditures there. So I think that just to for committee's information, if this motion is defeating it, I do have a subsequent motion. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Clayton.
I will reclose.
Okay, you want to close again, or
okay? Am I sure I got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Connor.
I will still vote in favor of this motion only because of the point that was brought in the report by administration saying that the monies shouldn't be taken. It should be fully taxed. If you make a decision after that, and whichever way that's going to go, I'm okay with that. But we need to make sure that the money is for future. And if we take it out of reserves, we're still going to have shortfalls in the future. So that's why I'm voting in favor. That's my close. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your close, Councillor O'Connor. Please vote when your e-scribe pops up here. And that's defeated, so I will go back to Mayor Clayton for another motion, please, or other business arising.
Thanks, Chair Platt. I would move that committee recommend council increase the 2024 budgeted municipal tax levy. It'll be increase the 2024 budgeted tax levy by the amount in the original motion, $3,073,823, and amend the operating capital budgets as presented, period. The combination of levy would be covered by partial tax funding and partial reserve funding, period. And this motion, or rather this discussion, will go to council on April 22nd. Thank you.
Sorry,
I'm sure the legislative services will clean that up a bit, but basically it's recovering the approximately $3 million as required. The discussion will be at council on April 22nd, and that money will be recovered in a combination of tax funding and partially reserves. Thanks.
Sorry, just for clarification for me, Mayor Clayton, and just for on the motion, are you looking at a percentage of this being allocated? Just to give a little bit of administration, a little bit more direction, are out of the $3 million, are you wanting it 50-50, or just so we have some more clarification on how you're seeing that being split?
Yeah, personally, and I mean, I think that's a better council discussion rather than a committee discussion. For me, the goal is to not increase taxes, so increase taxes as minimally as possible. I think that there is potentially council strategic initiative for 700. There was the CFO updated approximately 600,000 from surplus of Q4. There is potentially revenue or money that won't be spent at the fire break. Spitballing numbers, I think we're almost at $2 million without even touching our financial stabilization reserve. Councillor O'Connor's concern, echoing the CFO's comments, were in regards to not touching reserves. That $2 million is money that we've already earmarked without even touching the financial stabilization reserve. So $2 of $3 million that's required in this shortfall puts us at approximately $1 million. It's over $1 million for 1%. So if we could get less than 1% to have our taxes at less than 4%, that would be ideal in my opinion. At a 3.99, we still are, if not the lowest, the top two lowest tax increases across the entire province for municipalities. So those are rough numbers, and I think it's a better conversation for all of council, but that's where I'm thinking, Councillor Plott.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I just want to read the motion back because I'm not sure if you have e-scribe available. So I have
it, thanks.
You have it? Okay, and have you had a chance to review that and you're happy with that motion? And just while she's reviewing it, just a question for administration. Does this motion give you enough clarity moving forward to come back to the next committee meeting or council meeting?
Thanks, Chair Plott. We would just interpret this as moving this discussion to a future council meeting. It isn't specific direction for us to pass a budget. If there were some beyond just updates on ongoing discussions at that time, if there was some specific information that committee or council would like, it would be useful to have that beyond regional discussions that are occurring and the finalization of the 2023 surplus numbers. If there's something additional, it would be useful for us to have that information before that meeting.
Okay, Mayor Clayton, are you good? I see your hands up again.
Yeah, the motion in the e-scribe is it meets my needs. I'm just contemplating a follow-up motion, but go ahead on the current motion. Thanks.
Okay. Any other conversation or debate on the current motion? Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, I think we're getting the carpet. I understand where you're going, Mayor Clayton, but I think we're getting the cart before the horse. I don't think this would prohibit anything if we went and took it out of, I don't want to see us take it out of any reserve or anything like that. But anyway, that's...
Councillor Berg?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Palat. I will support this one. Again, we can work out the finer details throughout the entire council. I do like the idea of using surplus from last year. I do like the idea of potential savings that we already forecast this year. I'd need to be sold on using reserves because the way I see reserves are for emergency situations. I don't see this necessarily as an emergency, or that's how I see reserves. And so I support this, but again, at council, different parts on how we bring this down is up for debate for me. So I'll support it going forward to take it to council.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. Just a question for administration on the motion. It's saying that it's discussion and matter to come to council on April 22nd. Would there be any benefit to this coming back to committee the week before with further information that we've requested today to have a little bit more conversation again and maybe have more information just so when we get to the April 22nd, we're ready to commit to a process, or is it the motion written fine to do that with administration?
Thanks for the question. I think either way works. If there was specifics that we need to go in and present, then yes, the 16 would work. Obviously, we'll incorporate this discussion into our report for the 16th. There is the $600,000 surplus, so that conversation will still be happening on the 16th regardless. So there's that opportunity there as well. So I think it does work either way.
Okay, no, and hearing that, I'll be in support of this motion as well. I do like the idea of us not putting this all on tax burden this year. I think we have opportunities. Might mean we have to put our thinking caps on what 2025's budget and beyond looks like and what we might have to do for changes moving forward. I can appreciate this will have an impact on that, but that's a long ways away and we've got a lot of runway to talk about 25 and beyond at this point as well. Mayor Clayton, did you have your hand up to close?
Yes, thank you. Just to clarify a comment that Councillor Berg made in regards to the reserve funding. This is not to take money from reserves as is. This is in the consideration that things such as surplus, money that's not spent, would go traditionally back to a reserve. So I'm happy to change the word if committee is more comfortable with to talk about alternative revenue sources, but really that the money that I'm talking about in regards to fire break money came from a reserve. The surpluses typically would go into a reserve. So this is not to pull from existing reserves. The motion as worded in my consideration would be in regards of actualizing money that hasn't been spent that would go to reserve if we didn't spend it. So I encourage committee to support this. I think this is, I hear your thought, Councillor Plott, in regards to potentially this going to committee first. In my opinion, this is a decision that needs a full council conversation. As always, council is encouraged to reach out to the CAO with questions that you may have. If council feels that there is a committee conversation or a council committee of the whole conversation required prior to the decision on April 22nd, let's talk about that. I mean, we can at any point agree to call a special council meeting to have questions answered in a public venue if you require. But I think that administration is, through your questions that you send through email, will be aware of what you're thinking. And I think April 22nd will give all of council an opportunity to discuss this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your close, Mayor Clayton. Please vote. And that carries unanimously. Mayor Clayton, did you have a subsequent motion as well?
Thanks, Chair Plott. No, I think I'm comfortable as is.
Okay, your hand was up still there. Wasn't sure if it was that. So thanks for that. And we'll move on to our next item of business, which is our outstanding item list. And I'll go back to Chief. Wait for that as well, please.
Thank you, Chair Plott. So there's one item on the outstanding items list, and it is on track for Q2, so no changes there. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Palat. I'd like to move committee receive the April 2nd outstanding items list as presented for information.
Okay, thank you for that. Please vote. Okay, and that carries, and we'll have about a 5-minute break here before we start our next committee. Thank you.